If you've ever watched someone you love cry into a napkin on Thanksgiving and realized it wasn't the turkey that broke them, it was their own family, then you already understand why I'm telling you this. My name is Helen Carter. I'm a retired family attorney. I've spent decades in rooms where people swear they're doing everything for the family, while they quietly destroy one person to keep everyone else comfortable. I thought I'd seen every version of it. Then one Thanksgiving in Boston, I met a young woman named Maya Reed, sitting alone at a two-top near the kitchen door, trying to disappear. And 5 years later, the same young woman stood in a vineyard in Napa Valley, smiling like sunlight, while an entire room applauded me and my husband as the parents of the bride, and her biological parents stood in the fight of lace. Back, uninvited, realizing they had been replaced in every way that matters. Before I tell you how we got from that corner table to that wedding aisle, I want you to hold one question in your mind. Just one. What happens to a person after they stop shrinking and start building a table of their own? Now, let me take you back to the phone call that cracked Maya's life open 3 days before Thanksgiving, November 21st. I didn't hear that phone call. I didn't know Maya yet, but I know it the way you know a scar by touch. Because later, when she finally told me, her voice still tightened around the same 7 words. Don't come home this year. She was 27 then, living in a tiny studio apartment in Boston, a pumpkin candle burning, trying to force the holiday spirit into a room that didn't feel like home. She had a plane ticket back to Connecticut, non-refundable. She had bags half packed. She had that small, stubborn hope a lot of scapegoats carry. The one that says, maybe this year will be different. Her mother's name flashed on her screen. Maya smiled and answered, because she still thought a mother calling meant something warm. Hey, Mom. And her mother's voice was flat, cold. The voice you use when you've already decided the outcome. Maya, I need to tell you something. Maya's stomach dropped. She asked if her dad was okay. Her mother said he was fine. Then came the pause that isn't empty. It's loaded. Listen, I've been thinking, and don't come home this year. Maya actually laughed at first. That's the tragic part. Sometimes your brain refuses the truth because it's too ugly to hold all at once. What do you mean? And her mother said the phrase Maya had heard her whole life. The phrase families use when they're about to sacrifice the same person again. Sloane doesn't want drama. Sloane, her sister, pregnant again. And apparently the mere existence of Maya at a dinner table counted as stress. Maya gripped her phone so hard her knuckles hurt. Drama? What drama? I haven't even talked to her in months. Exactly. And let's keep it that way. You know how you get. How you get. Maya asked a simple question, the kind that should be harmless. Mom, I asked last year why I wasn't invited to her baby shower. That's not drama. That's a question. And her mother snapped back like Maya had committed a crime. See? That's exactly what I mean. You always make everything about you. Then Maya said she already bought the ticket. And her mother said, get a refund. No negotiation. No apology. No softness. Just one daughter's comfort placed on top of the other daughter's heart. Like a paperweight. Victoria doesn't want drama. You understand? Click. Deadline. And there was Maya, standing in her Boston studio, watching snow fall outside a window, realizing her own mother had just shut the door on her for asking to be included. That's the thing about scapegoats. People think it's one big event, one big betrayal. But usually it's a pattern. 1,000 small cuts that teach you your feelings are inconvenient. Later, Maya told me about her 16th birthday. She had planned it for months, just a simple bowling night with 3 friends. Her mother promised cake, then Sloane called crying because she failed a calculus final and needed emotional support. So Maya's party was canceled. The day became about her sister. Maya remembered her mother's words more than the cake that never appeared. Don't be dramatic, Maya. Your sister needs us more right now. You can celebrate next weekend. They never did. Then there was her college graduation. Honors. First in the family. Years of late nights and part-time jobs and ramen. She walked across that stage and scanned the crowd for her parents, and their seats were empty. They showed up 2 hours late because Sloane had a prenatal checkup that couldn't be rescheduled. You understand, sweetheart. Your sister's baby is more important than a ceremony, more important than her. That was always the translation. Maya learned early that speaking up only made it worse. Stop being so sensitive. Why can't you just be happy for your sister? You always make everything about yourself. So she did what scapegoats do. She got smaller, quieter, more agreeable. She tried to become invisible enough to finally be loved. But there is no amount of small that is ever small enough for people who need you beneath them. That night after the phone call, Maya called her father, David Reed. She didn't know what she expected. Maybe one word of defense. Maybe a simple, "I want you here." The phone rang 4 times. "Hey, kiddo." His voice was cautious. He already knew. "Dad, did Mom tell you?" A pause. Football game in the background. A man trying to disappear while his daughter is asking to exist. She mentioned it. "And you're okay with this?" Another pause. Then the phrase Maya hated almost as much as drama. "You know how your mother is. She's just trying to keep the peace." Keep the peace. By excluding her own child. Maya asked the question that mattered. "Dad, do you want me there?" 5 seconds. 10. Silence. Then the answer that landed like a door closing. "I think it's better if you listen to your mother this year." Something in Maya went quiet. Not sadness, not rage, just emptiness. The part of you that finally stops begging. "Okay, Dad," and she hung up. He didn't call back. Thanksgiving morning came gray and cold. Maya woke up to her neighbor's family arriving. Footsteps overhead. Kids laughing. The muffled warmth of voices through the ceiling. The smell of stuffing drifting through vents like a cruel joke. Her phone stayed silent. No calls, no texts, not even a happy Thanksgiving. Then she made the mistake of opening Instagram. Sloane had posted a photo. The whole family around the table in Connecticut. Her mother, her father, Sloane and her husband, their toddler in a turkey sweater, smiling. The caption said something like, "So grateful for my family. These are the people who matter most." Maya zoomed in, counted place settings. 4 adults, 1 toddler, 5 chairs, no empty seat, not even the hint of one. They hadn't just excluded her, they had erased her. She closed the app and stared at the ceiling. And for a moment, she considered doing what she had always done. Shrink, hide, punish herself for having feelings. But something in her refused. She wasn't going to sit in the dark and let their rejection turn her into the sad, dramatic daughter they loved to accuse her of being. So she put on her coat, and she walked out into the snow to find a restaurant that was open. A place with light, a place with real food, a place where she could at least pretend she belonged to the world. That restaurant was Harborview Grill, and that's where my husband and I were. George and I have a tradition. We go out for Thanksgiving dinner, not because we don't love cooking, but because our family is large and loud and complicated, and sometimes it's easier to meet at a place that keeps refilling the breadbasket. That year, we had our sons with us. Andrew, our older one, with his wife Lauren and their kids, Ellie and Noah, and Ethan, our youngest, around 30 then, with that easy smile that makes strangers tell him their life stories in line at the grocery store. Our table was big, 3 tables pushed together, 3 generations, too many plates, too many laughs, George telling terrible jokes because he loves the sound of groans almost as much as laughter, Ethan making the kids giggle until Lauren threatened to take his phone away. And then, I noticed Maya. She was seated right beside us, a tiny 2-top in the corner near the kitchen door. She tried to look like she chose it, but her shoulders were tense. Her eyes kept flicking toward families like she was watching a movie she wasn't allowed to be in. Her turkey arrived, perfect and golden, and she didn't taste it. She pushed food around her plate like she was trying to move time forward without living inside it. At first, I told myself not to intrude. People are allowed to be alone. People are allowed to have private grief, but then I saw her wipe tears quickly, like she was ashamed of them, like she'd been trained to hide pain so no one could accuse her of being too much. That did it. Something in me rose up, because I've sat with clients who were called dramatic for asking not to be treated like garbage. I've watched families point at one person and say, "You're the problem," while the real problem sits smiling at the head of the table. So I stood up. I walked over to her little two-top, and I said the simplest truth I knew. "Honey, are you okay?" She froze, like a frightened animal, like kindness was a trap. "I'm fine. Allergies." I raised an eyebrow. Not judging, just knowing. Allergies don't usually make people cry into a napkin on Thanksgiving. She made a sound that was half laugh, half sob. That obvious? Only to someone paying attention. I told her my name. Helen. She told me hers. Maya. Her voice was small. Then I said the thing that would change both our lives. No one should eat alone on this day. "Why don't you come join us?" She shook her head immediately. "Oh no. I couldn't. I don't want to intrude." "You're not intruding. I'm inviting. There's a difference." Then I did what I always do when someone tries to refuse kindness because they think they don't deserve it. I made it easier to say yes. I told her George tells terrible jokes. I told her Andrew tries to start debates. I teased my own table like it was a punishment she might as well share with us. George waved at her from the big table and called out, "She won't take no for an answer." Ethan grinned like he already approved of her. Maya looked down at her cold turkey, her empty table, her damp napkin, and then she looked at me, like she was trying to decide if the world was safe for 1 minute. "Okay," she whispered. I put my hand on her shoulder. Not to pull, just to steady. "Come on." We opened another bottle of wine and there's too much pie. We made room for her like she had always been there. Someone pulled up a chair. Someone handed her a plate. Andrew passed the mashed potatoes without asking. Lauren smiled at her like a sister might. The kids stared for 2 seconds, then went right back to arguing about something ridiculous. George shook Maya's hand. Firm, warm. "I'm George. This is Helen. Our son Andrew, his wife Lauren, the kids Ellie and Noah, and our youngest Ethan." Maya gave a shy little wave. "I'm Maya. Thank you so much." Then Andrew asked her what she did. Like it mattered. Like she mattered. "I'm a graphic designer. Freelance mostly." "That's wonderful," Lauren said, and admitted she can barely draw a stick figure. Ellie, 8 years old and brutally honest, said stick figures are easy. We all laughed. Not at anyone. With each other. That sound. I watched Maya's face react to it like it was sunlight after a long winter. Ethan leaned across the table and whispered to her. "Fair warning. My dad's about to tell a joke," George protested. "I am not." He was. Of course he was. What did the turkey say to the computer? Andrew groaned. "Dad, no. Google, Google, Google." The kids exploded into giggles, and Maya laughed. A real laugh. The kind that escapes before you can stop it. George raised his glass. A toast. To unexpected guests who make our table complete. We all raised our glasses, including Maya. She looked around at us like she couldn't quite believe we were real, like belonging was something that happened to other people. After dinner, when the kids ran off and the men argued about football, I slid into the chair beside her. "How are you doing?" she said. "Better," she told me. "This is really nice. Thank you." "You're welcome." But that's not what I asked. She swallowed. The truth fought to stay hidden, because in her family, truth was always punished. So I softened my voice. Not pity, just invitation. "Do you want to tell me why you were really here alone?" She hesitated. Then she said it. "My mom called me 3 days ago, told me not to come home for Thanksgiving. My sister's pregnant, and she doesn't want drama." She said the word drama like it tasted bitter. Drama is what they call it when I ask questions they don't want to answer. I nodded slowly, because I knew that family script by heart. Then I told her something I've learned after 30 years in family law. The people who accuse you of causing drama are usually the ones creating it. They just need someone to blame. Maya stared at me like the air shifted. You're not the problem, Maya. You never were. Her eyes filled. She didn't speak. She didn't have to. Some sentences land inside you and rearrange furniture you didn't realize was broken. The check came. Maya reached for her wallet. George waved her off like it was nothing. Our treat, Thanksgiving tradition. We always buy dinner for new friends. When we stood to leave, I pressed my card into Maya's hand. Cream-colored, black text. My old title still printed on it. If you ever need to talk, call me. I mean it. George added, Sunday dinner's at our place. You're welcome anytime. Maya tried to refuse. Ethan cut in with the casual certainty of someone raised inside a real family. She can and she should. Mom doesn't say things she doesn't mean. Trust me. At the door, I looked at Maya and said the truest thing I know. Family isn't blood. It's showing up. She nodded like she wanted to believe me, but didn't yet know she was allowed. That's the first night. The corner table night. The night she stopped shrinking for people who didn't want her and started learning what love looks like when it doesn't have to be earned. Maya didn't come the first Sunday. Or the second. She told me later she stood on the edge of our world like it was someone else's home. And she didn't want to be accused of taking up space. So I called her. Just to check in. Just to remind her she wasn't a burden. By early December, she finally said yes. I still remember opening the door and seeing her on the porch in Brookline, shoulders tight, hands clasped like she was bracing for rejection. There you are, I said, like it was normal, like she belonged. Then I hugged her, and I felt her body go rigid for half a second, then soften, like her nervous system didn't recognize safe touch. We saved you a seat. That first dinner, she barely spoke. She laughed politely. She washed dishes like she was trying to pay rent for kindness, so we didn't let her buy her way in. We treated her like family. We asked about her work. We handed her leftovers. We teased her gently. We let her be quiet without punishing her for it. Weeks turned into months. George taught her chess. She lost every single game. He was thrilled. He said it meant she'd keep coming back for revenge. I taught her my pie crust recipe, the one I always swore I'd never write down. She copied it carefully, like it was a sacred text. Ellie and Noah started calling her Aunt Maya without anyone instructing them to. And Ethan and Maya became friends first, the real kind. Texting random thoughts at 2 a.m., arguing about movies, sitting side by side at dinner like it was the most natural thing in the world. Here's a payoff people miss. It's not flashy. It's quiet. Maya's phone stayed silent, and for the first time in her life, she stopped checking it. No birthday call from Karen, no Christmas card, no random text, nothing. And Maya didn't collapse. She didn't chase. She didn't beg, because she wasn't performing for love anymore. She was just loved. One spring afternoon, about 8 months after that first Thanksgiving, Maya and I sat on our back porch, tulips pushing up through soil, birds fighting over the feeder, George inside yelling at a game with Ethan. I asked Maya if she'd heard from her parents. No, she said. And I haven't reached out either. Do you want to? She stared at the garden like she was looking for an answer in the dirt. Sometimes, she admitted, late at night. I think about calling my mom and trying to explain. But then I remember, there's nothing to explain. She knows what she did. She just doesn't think it was wrong. That sentence, that's a hard one, because it means you can't fix it by being better. The wound isn't your behavior. The wound is their belief that you deserve less. Maya told me everyone says you should forgive no matter what. Blood is thicker than water. I told her the truth. I've never believed that. And the law doesn't either, not really. I spent my career helping people protect the families they built, not just the ones they were born into. She asked what I meant. I smiled and said gently, the law recognizes what the heart already knows. Family can be created, not just inherited. I didn't push. I didn't explain. I let it sit. Seeds need time. Whenever you're ready, I told her. 2 years after Harborview Grill, Ethan asked Maya to dinner at the same restaurant. He told us later he wanted it to be circular, the place where she was found, becoming the place where she was chosen again. He brought her back to the booth. He was nervous. He kept adjusting his napkin. He took her hand and said something that, honestly, still makes my throat tighten. I want to spend the rest of my life choosing you every single day. Then he opened a small velvet box. Maya read, "Will you marry me?" She said yes. Whispered it like she was afraid the world would take it away. The restaurant applauded. And Maya finally noticed the corner booth. George and I were there. Champagne poured, smiling like we'd been holding our breath for her happiness. Because we had. Wedding planning started. Venues, catering, flowers, overwhelming joy. But one line haunted Maya, parents of the bride. She couldn't put David and Karen Reed on the invitation. They hadn't spoken to her in over 2 years. They hadn't called on her birthday. They had erased her. So one evening, she paced in our living room. I found her like that, hair pulled back, hands twisting. "What's troubling you, sweetheart?" She told me about that blank line, the impossible space, the grief underneath it. I sat her down beside me, and I said the words I had once planted as a seed. "There's something I mentioned before. Legal recognition for chosen family. Do you remember?" She nodded. "Adult adoption," I said gently. Her eyes widened like I'd spoken a myth. "It's real," I told her. "A consenting adult can be adopted. It creates a legal parent-child relationship. New legal next-of-kin status. It makes the truth official." Maya's voice cracked. "Would you and George consider?" I didn't let her finish. I pulled her into my arms. "We considered you our daughter since the first Thanksgiving. We were just waiting for you to be ready." The process took months. Paperwork, court dates, forms. But it didn't feel like bureaucracy. It felt like a ceremony. When the judge signed the final order, Maya became Maya Carter, new birth certificate, new legal parents, a new name on paper that matched what our hearts had already been doing for years. And then Maya printed the invitations with the line she once thought she'd never be allowed to write. "Parents of the bride, George and Helen Carter," underneath, in smaller text, "the family who chose her." I watched her stare at it for a long time, like she needed to see it to believe it. 3 months before the wedding, Maya's biological family finally found out. Not from her, from the world, Sloan texted. "First message in nearly 3 years. Did you know Maya is getting married?" Maya stared at the screen and blocked the number. Then Karen called 5 times in one day. Maya let every call go to voicemail. Then a text arrived. "Why didn't you tell us? We're your family. Call me back immediately." Maya read it twice, deleted it, and breathed like someone laying down a heavy box. 3 years of silence. And suddenly they remembered they had another daughter. I wish that was where it ended. But families who need control don't accept being ignored. Karen showed up at Maya's apartment on a Tuesday afternoon, pushed past her into the hallway like she still owned the place, demanded an invitation like it was owed. Maya told me later she felt eerily calm. That was the moment she realized she had changed. Karen looked at the photos on Maya's shelf. Maya and Ethan at the beach. Maya and me making pie. Christmas at our house. Maya in the center. "Who are these people?" "My family," Maya said. Karen's face twisted. "I am your family." "You were," Maya said evenly. "You chose not to be." Then Karen demanded the wedding invitation. "Excuse me? You heard me. You don't get to erase me and then demand a seat at my table." And Maya opened the door. That's when Karen realized the daughter who used to shrink was gone. The wedding was in June in Napa Valley. Golden morning, vineyard rows like green ribbons, an outdoor ceremony, white roses, greenery, a stone barn reception. In the bridal suite, I adjusted Maya's veil and looked at her reflection. She looked calmer than the girl at Harborview Grill. Stronger, like she finally knew she deserved to be loved. She picked up the wedding program and read the line again. Parents of the bride, George and Helen Carter, she whispered, almost to herself. I never thought I'd have that. I put my hands on her shoulders. Whatever happens today, you have a family who chose you. We will always choose you. Maya hugged me tight. I love you, Mom. It was the first time she said it out loud to me. And it didn't sound forced. It sounded like a key turning in a lock that had been waiting. I love you too, sweetheart. My daughter. The ceremony was beautiful. George walked Maya down the aisle, steady and proud. Ethan waited at the altar, nervous and radiant. Their vows made people cry. The kind of crying where you pretend you're fine, and then your cousin hands you a napkin like a truce. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, I watched Maya's face shift, like something finally clicked into place, like she had stopped being the afterthought, like she had become the chosen. At the reception, a security guard approached discreetly. Mrs. Carter, there are 2 people at the entrance. They claim to be your parents. Maya had prepared for that. She told the guard to let them in, but seat them in the back. Not with family. When Karen and David walked in, they looked uncertain, out of place, like people who expected the world to still arrange itself around them, and were shocked to find it didn't. Then the MC stepped to the microphone. Music softened. Ladies and gentlemen, before we continue, I'd like to introduce some very special people. Please join me in welcoming the parents of the bride. I saw Karen straighten up, chin lifting, ready to accept recognition she believed belonged to her. George and Helen Carter. The room erupted in applause. People cheered. Someone whistled. Glasses clinked. Camera flashes. And in the back, Karen's face went white. She grabbed David's arm like she needed something to hold on to. What did he just say? David looked stunned, hands in pockets, wanting to disappear. Because in that moment, Karen realized the truth. She had been replaced. Completely. Officially. Legally. Karen pushed through the crowd toward Maya. David trailed behind, shoulders slumped. What is going on? Who are those people? Maya's voice was calm. Steady. My legal parents. I was adopted 2 years ago. Karen staggered like she'd been hit. You can't just replace us. Maya looked at her evenly. I didn't replace you. You abandoned me first. We never abandoned you, Karen snapped. Maya didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. You told me not to come home. You chose Sloan. Every time. For 27 years. Guests nearby noticed the confrontation. Conversations died. Heads turned. 100 people suddenly listening. Karen hissed. This is humiliating, Maya said softly. Then, leave. You showed up uninvited to my wedding. You don't get to be the victim here. Karen stared at Maya like she was seeing a stranger. Maybe she was. Then David, her father, finally spoke up. Maya, his voice was rough. Broken. I'm sorry. I watched Maya turn and really look at him. Not as the father she wished he'd been, but as the man he was. He was crying. I could tell Maya had never seen that. I should have done better, he said. I was a coward. I knew how your mother and Sloan treated you, and I just stood there. A tear rolled down his cheek. You were my little girl, and I let them make you feel like you didn't matter. I'm so sorry. The words Maya waited decades to hear. And still, too late to erase the years. Maya's voice stayed gentle, but firm. I know you're sorry, Dad, but sorry doesn't undo the years you watched. Sorry doesn't give me back my childhood. Sorry doesn't make this okay. David nodded, wiping his eyes. I know. Karen's gaze snapped to me like a whip. You stole my daughter. I didn't flinch. I've sat in courtrooms with people like Karen, people who call control love. I didn't steal anything, Mrs. Reed. Then what do you call this? George stepped forward. My husband is not a loud man. He's steady, quiet. But when he spoke, his voice carried across the room like a bell. I think it's time for you folks to leave. Karen's jaw dropped. Who are you to tell us? George looked her straight in the eye. I'm her father. Legally. And in every way that matters. Karen tried to spit the same accusation again. You stole our daughter. George shook his head. Calm. Certain. No, ma'am. We didn't steal anything. You gave her away. We just picked up what you threw out. I saw Karen flinch like she'd been slapped. George continued, and the room stayed silent because everyone could feel the truth under his words. 5 years ago, this young woman was sitting alone in a restaurant on Thanksgiving because her own family told her she wasn't welcome. My wife invited her to our table. We fed her. We talked to her. We treated her like a human being. He stepped closer, voice lower. Do you know what she told us that night? She said she couldn't remember the last time she felt like she mattered to someone. He looked at Karen with something like pity. And steal. We didn't steal your daughter. We just showed her what family is supposed to look like. The rest was her choice. Then George turned to the crowd. This is my daughter's wedding day. The happiest day of her life. And I won't let anyone ruin it. He nodded to security. Please escort these people out. Karen looked at Maya with something that almost resembled hope. Like Maya might soften. Like Maya might rescue her from consequences. Maya held up her hand. Wait. Everyone froze. Maya walked toward Karen and David, stopped an arm's length away. Mom, Dad. Then she said something that cut through the air cleanly. I don't hate you. Karen blinked, thrown off. Hate would have been easier. Hate would have kept Maya tied to them. Maya continued. I've made peace with who you are. You're not villains. You're just people who couldn't love me the way I needed. People who chose comfort over fairness. People who let one daughter become invisible so the other could shine. David cried again. Karen's face went stiff like a mask. Maya stood straighter. But I've also made peace with who I am. And who I am is someone who deserves to be chosen. Not as a backup, not as an afterthought. Chosen first. Then she gestured toward us. Toward the table. Toward the life. You didn't choose me. They did. And I choose them. Her voice stayed soft. I'm not erasing you from my history. I'm just not giving you a seat at my table anymore. And that's not revenge. That's the natural consequence of your choices. She nodded once. Goodbye, Mom. Dad. Security escorted them out, and the wedding guests applauded. Not for drama. For Maya. For the moment a person stops shrinking and survives. The rest of the night was joy. Pure. Earned joy. Maya and Ethan danced until she was dizzy. They cut the cake while people cheered. George cried and pretended he wasn't crying. I didn't pretend, because this is what healing looks like sometimes. It looks like a woman laughing in a white dress, while the people who failed her finally understand they don't get to own her. The next morning, the backlash arrived. Texts from cousins, messages from relatives who hadn't bothered to learn Maya's life, but suddenly had opinions. How could you do this to your mother? Family is family. You broke your father's heart. Maya deleted them without replying. Then a message came from someone unexpected. David's younger sister, Janine. Maya, I heard what happened. I want you to know I'm proud of you. I always knew Karen and Sloan treated you wrong. You deserved better. You always did. Maya cried when she read that. Not because it fixed the past, because it proved she wasn't crazy. When the scapegoat gets one witness, it feels like oxygen. Sloan mailed a handwritten letter. Maya showed it to me later. The words were polished. The blame was still there. Mom and Dad were trying to keep the peace. You always made everything difficult. You were exhausting. Maybe when you have kids, you'll understand. Maya folded it carefully. Put it in a drawer. Not to treasure it. To stop it from living in her head. Ethan asked if it bothered her that Sloan still didn't get it. Maya's answer was the strongest sentence she ever learned. It's not my job to make her understand. It never was. A year later, life looked different. Beautiful. Ordinary in the best way. Maya and Ethan bought a little Cape Cod house outside Boston. Backyard. 20 minutes from us. Close enough for Sunday dinners. Far enough for privacy. Maya got hired as an art director. Ethan thrived at his architecture firm, and Maya was pregnant. When she told me, I cried. George tried not to cry and failed. We painted the nursery a soft sage green. We argued over mobiles like it was a matter of national security. Have you thought about names? I asked. Emily, Maya said. If it's a girl, Emily Grace Carter. She looked at me with a small, fierce smile. The Carter part is non-negotiable. I want her to have the name of the family that chose her mother. I hugged her so tight she laughed. When I saw you at that restaurant, I told her, I didn't know we'd end up here. I just saw someone who needed kindness. Maya shook her head. You didn't save me that night, Mom. Then she said something that I think every survivor eventually learns. You just showed me it was possible. I saved myself. 5 years to the day after Harborview Grill. Our house was chaos. The best kind. Emily, 6 months old, passed from lap to lap like a tiny treasure. Ellie and Noah playing cards in the corner. Lauren arguing with Ethan about how to carve turkey. George sneaking extra pie like a teenager. I clapped my hands. All right, everyone. Before we eat, we need a toast. I looked at Maya. She stood at the head of the table with Emily in her arms. 5 years ago tonight, Maya said. I was sitting alone in a restaurant, wondering if I'd ever belong anywhere. I thought I was unlovable. I thought there was something wrong with me. That I was too much, too difficult, too dramatic. Ethan squeezed her knee under the table. George wiped his eyes and pretended he wasn't. I didn't pretend. Then Maya smiled, and then a stranger named Helen Carter came up to my table and said, No one should eat alone on this day. And everything changed. She raised her glass. So here's my toast. To family. Not the one we're born into, but the one we build, the one we choose, and the one that chooses us back. To family, we echoed. Glasses clinked. Emily gurgled. George finally got his extra pie, and Maya looked around at us, and I watched something settle in her face that I will never forget. Belonging. The kind that doesn't ask you to earn it. Later that night, when the dishes were done and the house quieted, Maya and Ethan sat on the back porch with Emily asleep between them, wrapped in blankets, watching stars appear one by one. Ethan asked her if she ever thought about her biological parents. Maya said sometimes. Late at night. She wondered if they changed, if they understood. Then she said the sentence that is both sad and freeing. People rarely do. Not in the ways that matter. Does it make you sad? Ethan asked. Maya looked down at Emily's tiny fist curled by her cheek. It used to, but not anymore. I spent so many years being sad about a family that didn't want me. I don't have room for that now. My life is too full. Ethan kissed her forehead. What changed? Maya's answer was simple. And it was everything. I did. I stopped waiting for them to love me the way I needed. I stopped shrinking to fit into their version of me. And I started building something new. Now, if you're listening to this and you've been called dramatic, just for asking to be treated fairly, if you've been the scapegoat, the acceptable sacrifice, the one they erase from photos and tables and conversations, hear me. It's not you. It never was. You deserve to be chosen. Not as a backup, not as a last resort, not as the person they tolerate when it's convenient. Chosen first. Chosen fully. Chosen without conditions. And if the people who are supposed to love you can't do that, you have the right to build your own family. You have the right to walk away. You have the right to be happy. Setting boundaries isn't revenge. It's survival. It's choosing yourself when no one else will. And here's what I want to add. The part I wish someone had told Maya at 27, and maybe you need it now. If you're in that specific situation where your family punishes you for asking questions, where keep the peace always means you stay quiet, where they call you drama because your pain makes them uncomfortable, then listen closely. The mistake most people make is thinking, if I explain it better, they'll finally understand. But people who benefit from misunderstanding you rarely volunteer to see you clearly. So instead of building a perfect argument, build a plan. Start small and actionable. Write down 3 moments you were excluded. Not to obsess, to anchor reality. Pick one boundary you can keep without negotiating. 1. Something like, I'm not discussing this. Or, I won't attend events where I'm treated as optional. Find one safe person. A friend, a coworker, a neighbor. Someone who makes you feel calm in your body. Tell them the truth in one sentence. I've been the scapegoat. I'm trying to stop shrinking. Then ask yourself a question that changes everything. If I stopped chasing their approval today, what would I do with the energy I get back? That's where your life starts. That's where your new table begins. And one more thing. If you're waiting for permission to be chosen, you won't get it from the people who need you to stay small. So give it to yourself. Maya didn't become free because her mother apologized. She became free because she stopped begging for a seat and started building one. And if you're still at your own corner table right now, I want you to know something as the woman who stood up and walked over. There is nothing wrong with you. You were never too much. You were just asking the wrong people to love you right.